Kumlan about Gemara. Today's Daf is Daf Mem Beis. We'll learn Daf Mem Beis. I'm going to learn Daf Mem Gimel, so I will do a pause in between. We're up to the top of the page with two dots. It's actually not today's Daf. This is Monday's Daf Mem Beis. Tiny sister. You said before, but if they did not use a razor, these three people, the Levi and the Mitzvah and the Nazir, did not use a razor for their shaving. Even if they removed all the hair, but they left behind two hairs, even though the majority of the head was shaven, but if two hair just which is substantial enough, means you haven't completed your mitzvah. Had you not told us that, we would have thought you would have completed the mitzvah. Why would we have thought you would have completed the mitzvah? So from here we learn out an interesting concept. From here we learn out this concept that the majority is like all of it, like when you shecht simonim on an animal, if you did rave simonim, the majority you cut through, you didn't cut it all the way through, was good enough, is from the Torah. Because you see here, you're telling me, if not for the fact that you told us that you're not yaitz with the last two here, if the last two here are still there, you would have fulfilled your mitzvah of the Torah. How do we know this is such? How do you know that? The goal, the Torah reveals us by Nazir. There are Nazir who became tamei. Somebody died, and he has to go ahead and shave his head. It says there he should shave his head, and then it says again on the day it becomes Torah. By Yom Hashvi Galchenu. Why is it the second time? To tell you because there's twice Yigalchenu tells you that you have to cut off every single hair. Bahaba Alma, but everywhere else is Rubik a cool head. The pasuk that said to that we would have thought, yeah, of course, it's good enough. Everywhere else is good enough. This is written, this pasuk by Yom Hashvini is only by Nazir Tamei, but maybe by Nazir Torah it doesn't say this pasuk. Maybe Taka Rubik Kulit. Maybe you don't have to cut off every single hair and even including the last hair. Machkola Marava. They smiled at him, Marava. They got him back because he always used to smile at other people who said things which he thought were a bit erroneous. So they did the same back to him. And they said to him, as we learned till now, we're continuously comparing Nazir Tamei to Nazir Torah and vice versa. Mechdi, Nazir Tamei, how do you know Nazir Tamei needs a razor? Nazir Torah Yalis. Because in Nazir Torah you learn out, we said before, so therefore, let's say Nazir Torah, but later Nazir Tamei. So now Nazir Torah can also learn for Nazir Tamei. Man Tamei kishayish teisai like just like by a Tamei, if you left behind two hairs that you haven't cut off, you haven't fulfilled your mitzvah, you haven't yet finished your tumah that you can start again. Over here also, the final mitzvah is if you don't cut your last two hairs, you didn't. You got to last time. Then Nazir, the Gemara sort of spells everything out. You don't need Rashi sometimes. Interesting that the Chassam Sofer has a whole chakir in his chuvas. So we say, for example, by Kiddush, you need a revius wine. Why don't you just say Rubik Ukula? Say you need more than half a revius. Why in everywhere? Why do you have all shiyurim? Every shear say Rubik Ukula and have less. So therefore, the Chassam Sofer adds a word. He says Rubai Mikula. You need the kula to be present. And if you have the ray from the kulei, that's rubik kulei. So, for example, all your hair is on your head. You have two hair left. Okay, so it would have been good enough without the pasuk rubik kulei. But if you don't have the full revius, that you only have in your cup a little bit more than a half a revius, that there's no operation of rubik kulei. It doesn't work. It's rubik mekulei. You have to have the kulei there, and then you have ray. Abai, and I have a few interesting questions. Abai is the first one. He says, okay, you're telling me if two hairs remain behind, you have a fully mitzvah. So what about Nazir Shigileach? He took a haircut, but Vishayish Teisai is left behind two hairs, which means he has to cut them off. Meanwhile, by the time he got around to cutting off his two hairs, his hair grew back. Let's say by the time he cut these two hairs, all his other hair grew back. And now all he cut was these two hairs. Do we say that good enough because he already started this continuation? Or do we say no, that now they have full head of hair, you have to start all over again? And it remains with a question. Comes along Rava, not to be outdone. Boy, Rava, so Rava asked another question. He says, what happens? Shigilach, a Nazir that took a haircut, he left behind two hairs, so now he has a mitzvah to cut these two hairs in order to fulfill his mitzvah. What happened was the gilach achas. He went to cut one, and then the nishra achas, and the other one fell out. Mao. So the point is, he only cut one of the hairs. He's supposed to cut the last two hairs. He only cut one of the hairs. What's the din then? Amalei. What's the problem? Gilach. Side of comes by the other. That he's cutting a hair at a time. If he cut one hair, there's nothing left there. So what do you want him to do? What's the shaila here?
He's saying by the time the first hair was cut, now he's only got one left. So there's no hair to stay silent.
No, but he did the normal thing. He had two hairs left. He cut one, another hair fell off. What do you want him to do? Why shouldn't that be good? What's the shaila here? What's it? You're right, all the way around. The two left, but when there's only one of them fell out, and there's only one hair left. Now, there's two left before we said it's substantial enough that you still have the mitzvah of cutting. But now, when he went to cut, the last two hairs, one of them fell out. So now only has one left. Is one left considered like he's doing the mitzvah, or he's stuck? You cannot finish the mitzvah. You wait 30 days, you get another whole head full of hair before he completes it. What do you do now? So the Gemara, he said to him, Giluach enkan, sar enkan. He cannot cut, but there's no hair over here. There's only one hair left, but you need a minimum of two, as we said before, to be chashuv. So when I ask, sar enkan, Giluach yeshkan. If there's no hair, what do you mean? There's something to cut? What do you want? Hachgamet. Afa pisha sar enkan. If there's no hair, mitzi giluach enkan. He has not fulfilled the mitzvah giluach. The mitzvah was to cut the last two, and since one of them fell out and there's only one left, you can't complete the mitzvah of giluach. You have to wait. Yeah. We're talking about where you cut your whole hair and you left two behind. If you continue cutting, leaving it behind, and you just continue cutting, you cut. Whatever it is, it is. But here you finished cutting the whole hair, you left two behind. We said, oh, you have a chiyuv now to cut the last two hairs off. So now so it's a new chiyuv, but you go cut the last two hairs off, one of them fell off. There's nothing to, now you only have one hair left. So therefore you cannot complete the mitzvah giluach. So the Mishnah, Nazir, what can he do with his hair? Nazir, chayfiv, he can wash his hair, mifbasves, he can part his hair, he cannot use a comb to comb his hair. Remember, a Nazir not allowed to cut his hair, so we're allowed to do certain things with the hair, but certain things you cannot do with the hair. So you said, the Mishnah is contradicting itself. Because we have a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda Shimon and Hilchas Shabbos and Kol Ter Kula. If you do something unintentional, is that considered an avera? You did an avera unintentionally. You dragged the chair on Shabbos, and while you're dragging the chair, it made ridges in the ground. So davar she'ein miskaven. You had no intention of making ridges in the ground, which is plowing. So as Rabbi Yehuda says, you're still liable because you look at the ma'aseh, and Yeshiva Shechai says you're potter because you look at the intention, the intent, the kavanah. Same thing applies to Kol Ter Kula. So this Nazir over here, you tell me you're allowed to wash your hair, you're allowed to part your hair, even though it could very well be that you might put some hair out, but it's unintentional. And then you tell me now I'll use a comb. But also unintentionally combing, you just want your hair to look nice. You're not trying to pull your hair out. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Who's the first part of the Mishnah? Also, Rav Shimoni. The permitted. I will say you shouldn't use a comb. Asin le Rabbanon fouls Rabbanon, which says that unintentionally is still liable. And should become Rabbanon when so is Rabbi Yehuda. Is Reisha Rab Shimon the Sefer Rabbanon? Where do you find that? Now, sometimes in Shas we had a buy. He said, yes, that's how it is, unless you have a good answer. Amar Rabba, Kul Rab Shimoni. This is all Rab Shimon. If you're using a comb, a comb is very fine, and a comb, and therefore actually your intention was to pull out hair which is a bit loose, still attached, a bit loose. So your intention was, that's why you're liable. Now, I just told you the pshat how the Rosh learns because it's a secretion. Remember, we had a concept because we had all of a shas. If it's inevitable, you cut the head off of an animal to use it as a bull. I don't think the animal's going to die. If you use a comb, it pulls hair out. You always look at the comb when you fill it. It has some hair over there. So therefore, you're not allowed to. It's a psikration. That's why you're liable. Now, why the other Shem don't learn that way is because whenever the Gemara says that, the Gemara always says, that psikration, is definitely liable. And over here, the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara just says, it's all Rav Shimon instead of saying psikration, he's murdered. So it sounds like it's not because of psikration, but it's intentional. Mishnah. Mishnah says, I didn't know if you're allowed to wash your hair, but don't use a certain kind of earth. That does make the hair loose and fall out. Says there's two ways of understanding it. Because this particular potion or the dirt you're using will inevitably do that, or because there are some clumps of dirt, certain types of dirt that does that as if it don't use any type of dirt. Which one is it? He mishes aside because this definitely will pull out here. I didn't say ham mishes now because our son that will do that. That will pull out here. Says he well, the man after me looks in the Mishnah. What's happening? You know for sure that this particular earth is not going to pull your hair out. Because this will do it. If you know for sure it won't, then it's all right. Because there is some dirt out there that will do it. Then then at all you cannot use any dirt to wash your hair. Take Mishnah. Nazir If a Nazir drinking wine all day long, and in the chayvalachas. You only chay one avera. You know, you drank because you never stopped. So it's one long avera. Omrullah, they told him, Altishta.
If they can, just before Purim, right?
Oh yeah. They continuously warned him, don't drink. He said the first case they gave him one warning. One warning is one malchus. If they continuously gave him warnings again and again, don't drink, and he continued drinking, each one is a disparate avera.
Each drinking or each hasra?
The drinking after the hasra. Every time you could drink after the hasra, it has to be also take a dibur of the hasra. If you drink it 5 minutes later, you say you forgot, like having more subas. Now the next avera, shaving. If you warn him, you're not allowed to take a haircut, and it took him 4 hours to take a haircut. He did one avera. Every hair, before every hair every time the barber took something, they said, don't you dare cut. You're not allowed to, and he said, I don't care. Continues chai he's chai for every warning. The same principle here, but again and again. He went into the cemetery and he touched dead. Kol hayim all day long, and they warned you not to touch dead. And the chai it's one aveda. But amru al titma. Who metame that continuously tell him don't touch, and he continued touching after the warning. The chai for each one. So of course we talk about tumah. The Gemara gets all excited. We'll go into tumah a little bit.
You have to ask the classic question: why do we need all 3 examples?
Yeah, and that's one question Gemara doesn't ask.
I'll apply.
You got to figure it out on your own. Leave something for you. When you have an answer, come back. Itma, we learned. It says in the pasuk that a kohen not allowed to become tamei, but except to his fathers, his mothers, his brothers, his sister. A nazir is not allowed to come tamei to anybody, even to his immediate relatives. So he says, lo yitama. You not go to his father's, mother's, brother, sister. Lo yitama. You should not become tamei to them. So it says one aveda called you not become tamei. And there's another passage which says that all the days that you're a nazir is al nefesh meis lo yavai. There's another aveda called lo yavai. Now there's different kinds of tumah. One is called maka if you touch a corpse. One is masa if you lift it, and one is oil. If you walk into the room that there's a corpse there, so you become tamei. Lo yavai means don't walk into the oil. So we learn from here. That what? That if you walk into a house, and we warn 2 things. First of all, you're not allowed to come in. Second, when you're not allowed to walk in, you'll be getting twice malchus because you committed 2 avedas. But if I tell you, don't touch, and with the same tumah, you only get one malchus. Don't touch a body, then you touch a body, then you touch another body. You only get one aveda. You only get one malchus. We'll delineate this soon. So the Gemara, but Rabbi Yosef disagrees. He said, "You Rabbi say in the name of Rabbi Huna that tumah v'tumah." I disagree. I'll keep I swear. Amar Rabbi Huna holds afilu tumah v'tumah. He holds that even tumah v'tumah, you're touching one body after another body, you will get 2 avedas. You know, it's the exact same aveda. You will get 2 avedas. So see later in the Gemara what's going on here. So the Gemara. How do I know? Rabbi said, Nazir was standing inside a cemetery by or says and it means or. While he was standing in the cemetery, and we're assuming he was standing in the cemetery, he was standing on top of a grave, touching a grave, and then they gave him another corpse to touch. And this Nazir, you're not allowed to touch anybody. His father or a relative or a stranger makes no difference. The Nagabai, chayiv yachayiv. Now, l'chayda, you're tummy right now anyway because he's touching another grave, and then they gave you exactly. So it's even though it's the second one, since you're still tummy from the first one, it doesn't. Hamatami v'koyim. Yeah, sorry. And Abunda says you are chayiv twice. Now why? So Rabbi Yosef proves from here that Rabuna holds tumah vituma. No, but Rabbi says in this case, Itaka wouldn't be tumah. You wouldn't be chayiv a second time. But Rabbi Yosef says no. Rabbi Huna actually said, you're saying Rabbi Huna no. I'm saying Rabbi Huna said, yeah. Well, how you look at this case here? Staying in the cemetery, they gave him another body. Because they gave him another body, he's chayiv a second time. And Lav Shmam another chayiv tumah you're chayiv. That's what you wanted to say. So the Gemara, Rabbi Huna said, sorry, Shmam Rabbi Huna fil tumah v'tumah. Of course, Rabbi, both of his teachers are here together. It's Mechaya. Eisha Abaya. Abaya comes along and he asks the question, the following. What happens? A koyin, or other say it was a nazir. Say he had a mace lying on his shoulder, and they gave him this. That's why it makes more sense to be a nazir, because a koyin, if it's meisai, is not an avera. It's permitted. In fact, it's a whole machlekes whether it's only duchuya or hutra, and so on. But meis achas, it's talking about a nazir that gave him a relative of his or somebody else. The noga boy, and he touched it. Yochel yechai. It's a clear brice here. I would have thought you'd be chai, not because the second tumah. Talmud loim. It says the pasuk, "But lo yechalel." Tumah should not desecrate a kohen or a nazir. Should not. This is about a kohen, but it's the same idea. You should not desecrate yourself. The misha ein mechul. When is there an issue of desecrating by contaminating yourself? You weren't tumah yet. Now you're coming tumah. But over here, you're anyway standing there. You have a mace on your shoulder. You're ready tummy, and you're touching another mace. There's no problem. So Zakasha Rabbi asked Rabbi Yosef, you Rabbi Yosef say name Rabbi Tumah, yes, right. You're standing in the cemetery, and then they gave you a body. You say you become. If they warn you, get given a second of age. It says clearly, but I said that Misha Mechulu. If you're ready tummy, there's no problem. Malez Rabbi Yosef back to Abaya. Forget Rabbi. So you're bringing me a knife, Rabbi. I said that there's no tumah, right? If you're touching one body, you touch another body. Look at our Mishnah. The kasha from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah clearly said if we warn them every 5 minutes, don't touch, and he's over the every single time. The tikshu lachmas is continuously he was going ahead and come to me. Is one. If it's only one. He's chai for everyone. According to you, you're in coming. Kasha dadi kasha. Forget about the kasha Mishnah B'Raisa. Now, there's two ways of learning the Gemara right now. Whether Abai is answering, which is how the Rosh learns, or Rabbi Yosef is answering the way the Rashi and Tesis learn. So we learn like Rashi and Tesis. So Rabbi Yosef says, like Kasha. I'll explain you the Mishnah and the B'Raisa, and you'll see that for Rav Huna is no problem. Kan bichiburin, kan bishalei bichiburin. In the original case of chiburin, like chiburin is chibur. If a person touches a dead body, you become tummy for 7 days. Tummy mace 7 days. Got to make and all that. And paraduma. If a person touches a dead body, his state, the dead body is called avi avoisa tumah, the grandfather of tumah. The person who touches that body is called ava tumah. If another person touches that, so Reuven, let's say, touch a dead body, Reuven is ava tumah. If Shimon then touches Reuven, he becomes a tumas erev. He's only tummy till that night. But if Reuven is touching the dead body while Shimon touches Reuven, then Shimon also becomes Tamei 7 days. That's called Chiburin. If it's Chiburin, he becomes Tamei 7 days. If Lein Chiburin, if it's not, then the second person is a second generation, and therefore he's like a Rishon, he only becomes Tamei till that night. If he's Chiburin, they're right. Yes, so he becomes the same status. No, then they stop there, he goes to Rishon, so it stops.
So he's less than Reuven.
Yeah. In Gabi a second person, another person. Yeah. So it says like this. Same thing I'll say over here. In this brayso that says you cannot become tummy again from you're still chiburin. You're still holding on to it's on his shoulder. The mace is on his shoulder, and then you gave him another mace. Right now, b'shas ma'isa, I'm touching another tumah, so I'm not adding anything. But our Mishnah is talking about he touched the body, he walked away, and they warned him, don't go back again. And he walked back. So every time when he walked away, he's now no longer a chiburin, right? He's a step less. So then when he goes back and touches, he's adding more tumah. So when you're adding more tumah, even though it's the same tumah, you'll be over again and again and again, says Rabbi Yosef. But if it's while you're touching a tumah, you're not adding any tumah. I'm tummy anyway. I'm have a dead body on my shoulder. That's what the Bryce is talking about. He's a mechul v'oimid, but Amish is talking about again and again. So when Rav Huna said that tumah yesh is talking about that you're adding another tumah. In other words, you leave go of the one and then you touch another one. You're adding another tumah. That's what Rabbi Yosef is saying. According to Rosh, it's actually what Rabbah is saying. By defending Rabbah, but that's not how Moses Shoin learned. Says the Gemara, but tumah chabur the Reise, you're quoting a ma'aser tumah chabur as if this mahatoyed. Didn't Rabbi say Rabbi Yana that this whole concept of Mechaburin that if Reuben is touching a dead body and Shimon touches Reuben, that Shimon has the same status as Reuben is only the Truma of Kachim. If he wants to eat Truma, if he wants to eat Kachim, you got to wait 7 days because he became tummy. He touched Reuben while Reuben was touching a dead body. Aval and Nazir. But when it comes to a Nazir, does it cancel? If Shimon touches Reuben and Reuben touching a dead body, does Shimon now, if there's a Nazir, have to cancel the Naziris and go through the whole procedure that we learned before, and then they have, finish the Tumah and then go back and start again the 30 days? No. Or if a guy is doing a Korban Pesach and he touches Reuben and touches that body, he's only coming for that day. But that night he couldn't eat Korban Pesach. Now, if it's Ma'atoida, then what's the difference? The Torah doesn't make distinctions. The Torah, it's universal rules. If it's Ma'atoida that if Reuben is touching a dead body and Shimon is touching Reuben, Shimon takes on the status of Reuben. No, Shimon takes on the full din of a Tamei Meis. Then what's the chilik of a Nazir, Pesach, or Truma and Kachim? The Amidar Aisa, Maishna, what's the difference? So it says in Gemara, "Kan b'chiburi adam ba'adam, kan b'chiburi adam meis." Gemara says as follows: when is it ma'atoida? If Reuven is touching a dead body and Shimon is touching Reuven, then it's ma'atoida that Shimon has the same din as Reuven. He's a tamei meis. But if Levi is touching, if Shimon is touching Reuven, is touching his body, but Levi now is touching Shimon. No, it's chiburi adam ba'adam, not chiburi adam meis. No, but Shimon is only touching Reuven. We're happy to be touching. Levi is touching Shimon. That's only midrabban. That's the next stage already. That's only midrabban. That's a taste in the Rosh and others trying to learn. Rashi has a whole different pshat, which they find difficult to understand. Because it's already, in this case, it's already tamid. Sorry, I am full stop. Says the Gemara, you said before about but let's say if he's already tummy holding a dead body, and you're adding on, no, you cannot have two tumas at the same time. So that's a question. When you walk into the oil, tumu b'inami. You said before that everyone says that if you're walking into oil, it can warn you for 2 avedas. You always become tame before you're over oil. When when you consider that you're in the oil, you're inside the tent, inside the room, when most of your body is inside. Yes, but tuma. Remember, if there's the whole idea of oil is the concept of oil is that there's a corpse lying in the oil. It's as if the entire room is filled with tuma. The entire room is filled with this theoretical, this imaginary corpse everywhere. The moment you stick your finger in, you became tamei, but you're not chayiv oil until your entire, or most of your body's inside. Most of your body's inside. So we just said before that if you're already tamei, you can become add more tumah. Here you didn't walk away. Remember we said according to everybody, if you didn't walk away, you have a mace on your shoulder, and then you touch another mace. You're not adding anything. You don't become tummy. So every time you walk into an oil, it's like I have a mace on my shoulder because the moment I put my finger in, I became tummy. The whole room is full of that corpse. I'm touching that corpse the whole time, and then when I walk into the oil, you're not adding anything. So how can you become tummy? That's the question. So you already told me before. Why is it become tummy again? So we're saying the difference is that when do we say that? Sorry, when do we say that tumah doesn't work? It's talking about in the field. You're touching one body and then another body. But in the oil, they're both happening simultaneously. Now we're going to break it down like I just told you. And but bias, it's simultaneously. You're walking in, you become tummy, and you want to simultaneously. But bias nami. Keep on the oil yoda is time. As soon as you put your hand in the oil, you become tummy. And ke oil kule. High tummy. So when do you and then you walk into the oil, but you're already tummy before? Why? It can only be vasachas. How does it in one go? Elon of Lezer is talking about tzidif yoda. Talking about that tzidif, you put your hand in first. So someone asks, "No, mishum tumi should be a leka." There's again. There's tumah there. If you only stuck your hand in, there's tumah, but there's no bia because bia is only when most of your body comes in. So how's the vasachas? So Gemara says, with seed of gufay. Now what happens? You put your hands behind your back, and you go in with your goof. So Gemara says, tumah bia badi don't go. Here's an example where tumah and bia come at the same time. You put your hand behind your back. So Gemara asks, but she usually nose is in front of your face, so your nose got in there first. The noch is late tumas, so tumas took place first, and then all tumas oil. Then tumas oil. The Gemara, Ella Amarava Hichnis Yada. The Gemara is spelling out again. You put your hand in mishum tumi should be a leka. The Gemara is spelling out again. If you Put your hand in, there's tumah and there's no beer. Hechnis gufay tumah beer bahadeh. But let's say somebody you turn your head around, you walked in straight forward, but you turned your head around, so therefore your nose is not sticking out in front of you, jutting out in front of you, and your hands are behind your back. So now when you're walking in, the tumah and the beer happen at the same time. That's the Gemara. Well, you have but the calibration. What about your big toe? Your big toe, usually, you have to put your foot in front of you to get in. So there you have already. Your toes are in the room before you're in the room. So you became tummy before there's oil. So how's that work? So the Gemara. Now the Rosh already asked, why didn't you just say walking backwards? The Rosh says lo yava means only if you walk into a normal way of people, the conventional way of walking in. Otherwise, you wouldn't be over for lo yava. So therefore, it has to be going straight forward like everybody else does. Sometimes you turn your head around, you see somebody there, so you turn your head around to see where it is. So therefore, you still be over lo yava. We're trying to work out a case of how it's simultaneous. If we're asking a question, your foot, we'll give two answers. How is it possible that lo yava and lo yitma should happen simultaneously? Over the public, going should nichnes b'sheidet to the middle. They brought you in the famous sheidet to the middle in the box, the closet. They brought you in totally covered. So you were now in. You didn't become tamei because you're sealed in this box. And then your friend came and took and pulled out the not the cover but the floor underneath. So you have to be an oil. If you pull out the cover, you're not an oil. You pulled out the floor underneath. So you're hovering over whatever the corpse in the room, and now therefore the tumah will be a bahadiyat adikosin. Here you have a case of oil and the tumah both happen, concurrently, both happen at the same time. And talking about that, Taisa says that you did it willingly. If you didn't do it willingly, why would you get malchus? We're talking about getting lashes. That means you have to be a participant there. You told your friend, when I get in, take it out. No, you were trying to find a way to get the most malchus possible. Try to figure out why, but that's what he did. But Rashi says an interesting thing. He gives another answer. You entered the room when that person that was in the throes of dying was dying, or goyses, but he didn't die yet. So there's no tumah there. The nafak nishmasa ad Yosef, and the person died on you while you were there. The tumah would be a bahade hadodikasim. When did you become tummy? When the person died. And when did it become an oil? When the person died. So they both happened at the same time. Here's an example where tumah and bia happen at the same time. So that's how we explain that according to everybody, tumah at the same time. And tumah is only if you walked away and you came back.